When I moved into the old brick apartment building downtown, I thought I was just getting a cheap place to live. I didn't expect my new roommate, Madeline, to completely upend my life. Madeline was intense. She had this effortless charm, always in perfectly coordinated outfits, her hair styled as if she were about to walk into a photo shoot. She also had a knack for reading people, almost like she could sense what made you squirm. The first week, we barely talked beyond polite hellos. But one rainy Friday night, while we were both stuck inside, she appeared at my bedroom door holding 2 mugs of hot cocoa. "You're impossible to read, Alex," she said, plopping down on my bed without asking. "I'm not a book," I replied, sipping cautiously. She smirked. "Everyone's a book. Some people just have more interesting chapters than others." Then she said something I didn't see coming. "I bet I can guess your biggest secret in a week." I laughed. "And if you're wrong?" She tilted her head, thinking. "If I'm wrong, I owe you rent for the month. If I'm right, you have to do something I choose, no questions asked." It was reckless to agree. I didn't have a big secret. Or so I thought. The next few days were strange. She'd drop comments like, "That color looks great near your face," or "You've got surprisingly delicate hands for someone who plays basketball." One night she asked if I'd model for her clothing store's online page, nothing serious, just some casual shirts. I didn't want to, but her confidence was disarming. That's how I ended up wearing a pale lilac sweater while she snapped photos under warm ring light glow. She didn't say much, just kept adjusting the collar, brushing lint off my shoulders. The next day, she texted me one of the photos. "See?" she wrote. "You pull off soft colors better than half my female models." I told myself it was harmless. But then came the favor she wanted before our bet was even over. "I need one more model for our new collection," she said, "and it's a little different." When she pulled the garment from the bag, I froze. It wasn't a shirt. It was a flowing, cream-colored blouse with delicate lace along the sleeves. "It's unisex," she lied badly. "Just humor me." I should have refused. But she had that spark in her eyes again, like she knew something I didn't. And somewhere deep down, I realized I didn't hate the idea. That night, as I buttoned the blouse and caught my reflection in her full-length mirror, a thought hit me like lightning. She had guessed my secret. One I didn't even know I was keeping. And she wasn't planning to stop there. The blouse incident should have ended as a one-time favor. But Madeline didn't operate that way. 2 days later, she walked into the kitchen like she'd been waiting for me to sit down before unleashing her next move. "I've been thinking," she began, leaning on the counter with that sly smile of hers. "You wear that blouse better than the model I paid for last week. It'd be a shame not to show it off in public." I choked on my coffee. "Public? No, absolutely not." Her smile didn't falter. "Remember our bet?" I stared at her. "That was about you guessing my biggest secret." She cut me off with a knowing glance. "And I was right. You looked at yourself in that blouse like you'd been waiting to see it your whole life. So, here's your challenge." She slid a glossy shopping bag across the table. Inside was more than just the blouse. A flowing skirt in soft dove gray. A fitted cardigan. A delicate scarf that shimmered when it caught the light. "I want you to meet me at Rosewood Cafe tomorrow at noon," she said. "In this." I laughed like it was ridiculous. But she didn't blink. "You don't even have to talk to anyone but me," she continued. "I'll be there first. You just walk in, order a coffee, and sit down. That's it." "Why?" I demanded. Her smirk softened into something almost gentle. "Because sometimes the scariest thing you can do is let yourself be seen." I didn't sleep much that night. The bag sat on my dresser like it was staring at me. Every few hours, I found myself peeking inside, running my fingers over the fabrics. They were so light, so soft, almost daring me to imagine what it would feel like to wear them outside. By morning, my nerves were on fire. I could have texted her and said no. Instead, I was in front of the mirror, trying on the outfit. And that's when I realized she'd slipped something else into the bag, a small makeup kit with a sticky note. "Keep it simple. You'll thank me later." I'd never applied makeup before, but with a few YouTube tutorials playing in the background, I somehow pulled off a passable look. My reflection didn't feel like an imposter. It felt curious. Walking to the cafe was like walking through fog. Every step, I was sure someone would stop me, point, laugh. No one did. When I pushed the cafe door open, I saw her immediately, waving from the back table, her phone in one hand, that unreadable expression in the other. "You made it," she said as I sat down, voice low but warm. "And you look perfect." For the first time all day, I exhaled. We chatted like normal, but every so often she'd glance at me with this look, like she'd just pulled off a magic trick no one else could see. As I got up to leave, she leaned in and whispered, "Next time, we're going bigger." I didn't ask what she meant. I wasn't sure if I was terrified or excited. For 2 days after the cafe challenge, Madeline didn't mention it. She acted like it never happened, no sly comments, no new outfits mysteriously appearing on my bed. And that silence was more unnerving than her teasing. By Friday night, I'd almost convinced myself she'd dropped the whole game. That's when she burst into my room with a rolling suitcase. "Pack a bag," she said, like it was the most normal thing in the world. "For what?" I asked. "For our weekend getaway." I didn't agree to. "You did," she cut in, "when you showed up at the cafe instead of hiding in your room." I found myself in the passenger seat of her car an hour later, duffel bag at my feet, wondering what I'd just signed up for. We drove for 2 hours into a smaller city I'd never been to. The streets were buzzing with Friday night energy, couples laughing, shop windows glowing, the smell of street food in the air. Madeline pulled up in front of a boutique hotel with gold-lettered doors. As the bellhop opened the car door for us, she leaned in and whispered, "We're here for an event." The event turned out to be a fashion networking weekend, designers, boutique owners, stylists, models. The kind of place where everyone looked like they'd just stepped off a runway. "This is where you're going bigger," she said as we checked in. "Tomorrow morning, you're walking into that brunch as my mystery model. I almost dropped my room key. "Absolutely not. They'll know." "They won't," she said firmly, "because they'll see what I see." I didn't answer. I just followed her to our adjoining rooms, heart pounding. On the bed in my room, there was a garment bag. I unzipped it cautiously and froze. Inside was a full outfit, not playful and casual like the cafe look, but high-end, tailored, breathtaking. A fitted teal dress with intricate beadwork along the neckline, paired with a cropped jacket and ankle boots. It looked like it belonged to someone fearless. Someone not me. When I turned around, Madeline was in the doorway holding a sleek black box. "Hair extensions," she said with a grin. "Don't worry, I'll handle it." That night, I couldn't sleep. The thought of walking into a room full of strangers, dressed like that. Part of me wanted to run. But another part, the part that remembered how it felt at the cafe, wanted to see what would happen if I didn't. At sunrise, Madeline knocked on my door armed with coffee, makeup brushes, and enough determination for both of us. "This isn't about pretending," she said while working eyeliner with surgeon-like focus. "It's about trying on the version of you that's been hiding." When she finally stepped back, I barely recognized the reflection in the mirror. Not because it looked like a different person, but because it looked like a different possibility. As I followed her down to the grand hall, heels clicking on the marble, I realized something. If I could survive this, there might not be any going back. And when the first person turned to me with a smile and said, "I don't think we've met, what's your name?" I opened my mouth, and a name I'd never used before came out. The moment the words slipped out of my mouth, I surprised even myself. "Hi, I'm Elena," I said, shaking the man's hand. It wasn't rehearsed. I hadn't thought about it for even a second. But once I said it, the name felt like it belonged to the person standing there in that teal dress, not to Alex, who used to live in sweatshirts and keep his head down. The man smiled warmly. "Elena, I'm Marcus. Madeline's told me you're one of her new models." I glanced at her across the room. She was busy talking to a group of designers, but when she caught my eye, she gave the smallest nod like, "Go with it." The brunch was a whirlwind. People asked me about my modeling work. One woman even complimented my professional poise, which almost made me laugh because my knees were shaking under the table. But the strangest thing? No one questioned me. Not once. I was Elena, and no one saw through it. And with every passing minute, I started to wonder, Was there even anything to see through? Then it happened. A voice behind me, Alex. I froze. I hadn't heard that voice in years. Turning around slowly, I found myself face to face with someone from my real life, Jenna. She'd been a close friend in college, the kind who knew enough about you to make or break you. We hadn't spoken since graduation, but now here she was, standing inches away, her eyes narrowing in confusion. I'm sorry, I said quickly, forcing a smile. I think you've got me mixed up with someone else. Her brow furrowed. No. I'm sure it's you. Alex Carter. We had American Lit together. What's going on? Before I could respond, Madeline appeared at my side like she'd been waiting for this moment. Jenna. So nice to meet you. This is Elena, one of my models. You must be mistaken. Jenna's gaze darted between us. Model? Are you serious? This is. Madeline's tone sharpened, just enough to cut the air. I think what you meant to say is that Elena looks familiar. And flattery will get you everywhere. The tension was thick. Jenna didn't push further, but I could tell from her expression, she wasn't letting this go. The rest of the brunch passed in a blur. Jenna stayed on the opposite side of the room, but every so often, I caught her watching me like she was trying to piece together a puzzle. By the time the event wrapped up, Madeline and I slipped outside into the cool afternoon air. That, she said, was your first real test. And you passed. I almost didn't, I admitted. She knows. She suspects, Madeline corrected. But that's not the same thing. I wanted to believe her. But when my phone buzzed an hour later with an unknown number and a single text, "We need to talk," Alex, I knew Jenna wasn't done. I didn't reply to Jenna's text that night. I stared at it for hours, thinking maybe if I ignored it, she'd just let it go. She didn't. By the next morning, Madeline and I were at the hotel's rooftop terrace for coffee before the second day's networking session. I was trying to enjoy the skyline view when I heard her voice behind me. Alex. We are going to talk. I flinched, nearly spilling my coffee. Madeline looked up from her phone, instantly reading the tension, but I shook my head. I needed to handle this myself. Jenna crossed the terrace with that same determined stride she had in college, pulling a chair right up to mine. You're going to tell me what's going on, she said flatly. I played dumb. I told you yesterday, I think you've got the wrong person. Cut the act, she snapped. I remember how you used to doodle in your notebooks. I remember your nervous laugh. You might have makeup and a new wardrobe, but you're still you. I glanced toward Madeline, who was pretending not to listen but was obviously watching every move. What do you want, Jenna? I asked finally. She hesitated, which made me even more uneasy, then said, I want your help. And in exchange, your secret stays with me. It turned out Jenna was here for her own reasons, and they weren't purely social. She'd been trying to land a partnership with one of the boutique owners attending this event, but she'd already been turned down. You clearly have Madeline's ear, she said, leaning closer. And I know she's connected. You get her to introduce me, make it sound like I'm worth the risk, and I forget I ever saw Alex Carter. The way she said it left no doubt. This was blackmail, dressed up as a friendly arrangement.